Hello, everyone. This is Tijen Genco, and you are tuned into Coaching with Mastery and Elegance with Tijen Genco. I am a Master Certified Coach and Board Certified Health and Wellness Coach, focusing on executive life and well-being coaching. If you're new to this, this is a podcast that focuses on human development, growth, awareness, and provides authentic content and developmental ideas for coaches as well. And today I have a pleasure hosting Steven Puri. He is the founder of the Sukha company. Welcome, Steven.
Thank you for having me. I hope this can be informative and engaging and fun, maybe.
We'll do our best and leave the rest to the audience.
There we go.
Absolutely. And we have an interesting topic to get into. We're going to talk about joyful flows of life and how to get into the harmony, get out of the harmony, and what do you do when you fall out of the harmony or anything in between.
How to channel the good energies. Yes.
Absolutely. So, Stephen, how would you like to introduce yourself to our audience?
Well, for anyone listening, I think probably the thing that'll be most interesting is I'm one of the few people who has been a senior executive at a couple motion picture studios at Fox and on the DreamWorks lot. And I've also raised $21 million of venture capital, have run 3 tech companies, have 1 exit, 2 failures. And I've seen both sides of that. And one of the things it taught me was a lot about energy and creativity and how to develop yourself. Because I got to work with people on the film side that, are making movies that earn billions of dollars, and they're very talented about telling stories about human life. And on the tech side, I've worked a lot with very talented designers. There's a creativity in the tech side too. That's different. So I hope this is a good episode for people who are like, okay, how do these 2 worlds cross-pollinate each other? And what are the lessons from being part of both?
Absolutely. So I often look at when I'm with people now that, of course, I always have been admired human behavior in the mind, and now I'm in a
Yes.
professional position to look into that, and I also higher aspects in the human life and their stories. So that makes me think about your part of your life story involves almost in looking at the creativity in human expression in various ways. So that's lovely to hear. And we are going to get into the something you're passionate about. In fact, you kind of name your company after that passion.
You picked up on it. It's a weird name. People ask me, why did you choose this?
So, what would you like to say to our audience about the concept of Sukha?
You know what? I love that question. And I realized I chose a name for our company that was very specific and very out of the ordinary. So let me give you a short story that I think will both give you some orientation to who I am, like the energy that I bring to what I do and where my observations come from, which is Laura, my wife, who's amazing, very fun, joyful, runs tech for a huge bank. So she and I met in yoga. And we have a daily yoga practice. And there's definitely something very influential in my life about that connection between the physical world and the spiritual world, right? And yoga represents that to me more than CrossFit or weight training or things like that. So when we're getting married, we went on our honeymoon to Bali. I'm very grateful that is where our life is. We can go to Bali and hang out for 10 days and do yoga,
Nice.
enjoy each other. So when we were going there, it was around the time we had an early version of this company running with a temporary name. And I said to Laura, you know what? The next 10 days, no one's going to bug us. No one's going to reach out to me to be like, can you approve the stapler purchase? Or, we need to change the Amazon Web Services settings. I said, maybe the universe is giving me these 10 days because I need to come up with a name. And I've always admired those companies that have a name that's like, Amazon's not about books, but it's a strong name. Or Nike's not about shoes, but it's a strong idea, right? So Laura said, great, let that be your intention. Okay. So I said on the first day, I think it'd be great if I spoke to a couple of our power members who use this a lot and just seed my brain with what do they love about it? Like, what are their favorite features? So this, Laura said, I'm going to go to the pool. I will meet you at dinner, right? Have your little Zooms. So I posted in the group chat in my platform with the community. I said, hey, who has like 10 minutes today to just talk to me really quickly? A couple of people said yes. So I had those. I asked a bunch of questions, the usual ones. What do you love? Do you love the flow music? Do you love the smart assistant? Do you love the timers, the Pomodoro stuff, whatever, right? And the third and final guy I spoke to, about 8 minutes in, when you go into the wrap up, Tijen, thank you so much for your time. It's been 8 minutes. I want to let you go, be respectful of your time. I was going into the wrap up and he said, Steven, you asked the wrong questions. I know. And I was like, okay, what was the right question? He said, you should ask me why I pay you. And I said, it's 30 cents a day. I didn't think that was a big deal. It's not, we make this a very formal. I was like, but okay, fine. Why do you pay me? And he said, at 3:00, I can be playing with my kids. I have a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old. Or at 6:00, I can be down on myself. Where did the day go? What did I do with today? He said, the difference is, did I open your app in the morning? So I pay you because my kids are not going to be 2 and 4 forever. Okay. Wow. So I go to dinner with Laura and I was like, I spoke to this guy today who's more articulate about what I'm doing than I am. And I told her what he said. And she was like, that's really good. So we're brushing our teeth. And she said, we're going to like bed that night. And she said, in yoga, we hear a lot of these terms about satya and, and dharma and karma. She said, what he described to you, maybe this was the universe answering your call, was he described Sukha, which is that feeling of happiness when you're self-fulfilled, when you're doing the thing you're meant to do, you're good at it. Mm-hmm. You're in your lane, And she said, I think that's really important. I think you got the thing you asked for from the universe. And from bed that night in Bali, I looked up the website, the Sukha company, the happiness company, and it was available. And I bought it. And that's how we named our company. And that is ultimately what I'm trying to do, is not provide tools as the goal, but the tools are the path. So that ultimately you can be the person you want to be and be happy. That's what I do.
Yeah, excellent.
You look a little like, wow, Steven, that's a deep story to begin with. You asked the question.
No. I'm just thinking that actually made me think about my niche. And it's often not fully understood by the people who are not doing deep reflections. My niche is always about the highest potential. Mm-hmm. And in order for one to even experience and understand that potentiality, there needs to be also understanding and appreciation how to flow with the energies of life. Yes. and our authentic, appreciating our authentic energy signature, right? I'm quite different than you are. And yes, we are in alignment. And right now, hopefully coming out in harmonic with singing.
Yes.
Yeah. So certainly. And you gave us this beautiful story about how you named the company. Mm-hmm. And of course, there is often financial needs that also supports us to establish certain things and do certain things. But what is the, as I call it, thing beneath the thing, right? What was the intentionality behind the establishment of such an app?
You're going straight into the deep, good questions, which I appreciate a lot. So I'll tell you, all of us, and I don't think you're a billionaire, I'm not a billionaire. Most of our listeners are billionaires, right? Exactly. We're working hard, but we have a significant portion of our life that is work. And that can be trading the things that we think for money, or it can be trading the hours of our day for money, right? So what I believe is that if we offer a beautiful way to accomplish the work that moves your life forward or your team's life forward, that rewards you in that time with a feeling of, oh, you know what? I'm good at this. I'm in control of my life. I'm overperforming. And I'll tell you, one of the things we did this past year was we integrated artificial intelligence into what we do to help. And a number of people asked me, is this going to do my work for me? And I'll tell you the way in which I look at this particular aspect is, imagine you were the coach, you came to Usain Bolt, the runner, right? And you were to say, Usain, we have this robot now that actually runs faster than you do. So why don't you sit here with me and we'll let the robot run, right? Usain would be disappointed because he's like, actually, I'm really good at running. I love running. And all the spectators would be like, this is terrible. We didn't come here to watch a robot race, right? But if instead you were to go to Usain and say, hey, we used AI not to create a robot, but we actually designed a shoe that's slightly better around your toes. It has slightly more grip. This will help you overperform. You might shave a second off your time. That's probably a great way to use artificial intelligence in your work, is to say, how do we help you perform at the highest level of the thing that you're good at? And, we can talk about flow states. We can talk about, that sort of energetic thing, but that's ultimately the core of what I want to do, is say, hey, do the thing that you can do and do it at your highest potential. Don't just perform, but realize your potential to perform.
Okay. So then I'm looking into different threads you're presenting us with now, right? There was this Sukha, the states of effortless, graceful flows.
Yes.
And there is this supporting people to recognize their potentiality.
Yes.
There are supports, one of the supports that you developed. So how is all that connects to who you are and your cumulative life experiences that brings the authenticity into what you're bringing, and with your experiences feeding into the audience that you want to feed into?
I will tell you, my life has been a series of very lucky sort of accidents, things that have dropped in my lap, and then I've worked very hard to make something of those opportunities. So I'll tell you how this pieces together and leads us to today. I was born the son of two engineers at IBM. My mother was a systems programmer, a coder, software engineer, and my dad designed CPUs, like logic chips for mainframes. And so when I was young, it's like, if your mom is a great ice skater, you probably learned how to ice skate when you were little, So my mom was a coder, and I would go to the computing center with her and learn how to code. So my early years were about, I think this is what I'll do. It turned out that when I was at university in Los Angeles, I happened to be there at USC, which is a great cinema school, in addition to other things. And a lot of my friends were in cinema TV. They wanted to be Lucas or Spielberg or Scorsese. They talk about this a lot. So that was the world I was in. I was in Los Angeles when film became digital. So suddenly that was an on-ramp for me to say, I know how to speak engineer, and I know how to speak creative because my friends are, aspiring filmmakers. And my career took off. I produced the digital effects for Independence Day. We won the Academy Award for the visual effects. That helped my career tremendously. I did about 14 films producing the computer-generated aspects of them. So I worked with James Cameron, David Fincher, Spielberg, Woody Allen, Jim Jarmusch, like Mel Gibson, all these guys. It was really an amazing career. And that led me to say, okay, I think what I want to do is make films. Instead of just making the digital part of the film, make a whole film. Worked very hard. And as you know, I was a executive vice president at DreamWorks for Kurtzman Orsi, vice president at 20th Century Fox, like on the Die Hard franchise and Wolverine franchise and things like that. And I saw that world, which was a world imbued with creativity, but as the joke goes, it's not called show art, it's called show business, right? So that creativity has to be something that appeals to a large audience. It is not folding origami in your, bedroom, right? And after a certain period of time doing that, and I think Die Hard 5 is a real marker in time for me of like, is this really a good use of my life? Is there any idea behind Die Hard 5? Not really. And I decided to get back into the one thing that I knew where I had some agency, some control, some ability to express what it is I could do, which was technology. So I went back, founded a couple of small technology firms. And what was interesting, and this is sort of the end of a long answer for you, is in doing that arc from starting as a software engineer, going into being a producer and studio executive in a creative business and then coming back, I saw that the way the world changed, especially in the past 5, 6 years, where Zoom became a verb, right?
Mm-hmm.
We all were wrestling with these ideas of can you be productive in a hybrid environment, a remote environment, things like that.
Yeah.
There are a lot of lessons from film that were applicable to these other verticals. And I'll give you an example. For 100 years in film, they've had remote, hybrid, in person, but it's not called that in film. When you begin a film, it is writers working alone in their writing partner's house, in coffee shops. It's all remote work until one of the ideas gets some traction. Then there's a small production office set up to explore the idea. You're in the production office 1 or 2 days a week, meeting with costumers and location scouts and production designers, right? Then eventually you're on set. It's $125,000 a day. Everyone is there day and night working like RTO. And then it goes back to hybrid with, picture editors, sound editors working, and then finally remote. In each stage of that, leaders know how to lead through that stage, and individual contributors know how to contribute their performance. And that really mapped very clearly onto tech companies I was running. So a lot of what I've been sharing recently is, hey, what are some of those techniques in film that are very applicable? Because in film, it's been 100 years of doing this. Whereas in tech, it was only recently, and in many fields, it was only recently that it was contemplated, oh, you could be productive outside this cubicle with a fluorescent light 10 hours a day. Does that make sense?
Yes, and it makes me think that, with the Amazon self-publishing and Apple self-publishing and all that, and people right now, right, we are filming ourselves, and
Yes.
and there is, in a way, that creativity got out of being a product of special people
Yes.
into everybody
It's
is,
democratized.
right?
Yes.
So therefore, what you're saying to our audience, in a way, I have experienced both, whether
Mm-hmm.
you are a person that keeping the household chores or you are actually working for a company, you need to be performing in front of the camera. And I can help you.
It's true. It's true, though. The world has changed.
Absolutely. And I can
Yeah.
help you be a better performer, self-performer. And it's in a way like those grammarly, I'm thinking about, the AI helps you to become a better writer.
Yes.
Grammatically correct, I should say.
Yes. Right. A more exact. Yeah.
Yes. So then how do you tie in your mind that being productive supports people's return back into the harmonic flows?
Well, a lot of what I love to share is about the learnings that I've had, because I've found that some of them resonate with different sets of people. So let me give you an example of some creative learnings that I've had. So there's one that I like to call the other thing. And this I learned happily early in my film career. I was working I was about 20 years old, and I was working at a company that did trailers for movies. So we would get in films from Warner Brothers and Buena Vista, essentially Disney, and they'd have rough cuts of, oh, we have this, Tijen movie coming out at Christmas. We kind of need some help selling it, right? So I was the guy who chose writer producers to watch these rough cuts and then write trailers for them that you would see in a theater, that summer. And run by two guys who were like in the business for 20 years, very well respected in Hollywood as being promotional guys, right? One of them comes to my office and he always calls me Stevie, by the way. He's the only person in my life who calls me Stevie. And he's a friend to this day. So Jeff says, Stevie, do you know Bart? And I said, I know a guy that's in the tape vault named Bart. Yeah. He goes, yeah, that Bart. He's like, have you ever given him a movie to write a trailer? I was like, you're talking about Bart, the guy that drives the tapes around Hollywood, right? The same Bart. He's like, yeah, that one. I was like, you know what? I haven't, Jeff. Where are you going with this? So he said, I just have an instinct about him, Stevie. Give him a movie. And I was like, you know what? You've been doing this for 20 years. You have one of the top names in Hollywood. Who am I to second guess? Jeff, done. I'll do it today. So I chose like this Warner Brothers B title that had like a month deadline. So in case Bart comes back and says, I don't want to do this or I can't do this, I can give it to a pro who'll knock it out in a week, right? So Jeff comes to my office 2 days later. He's like, Stevie, how's Bart doing? I was like, Jeff, I gave him the movie 2 days ago. I'm not going to stress him out. He goes, okay, what else did you give him? I was like, I gave him one movie. He's never written a trailer before. And Jeff said, Stevie, listen, let me teach you something. He goes, it's always about the other thing. If you give Bart one creative thing to focus on, he's going to sit there at his laptop with little beads of sweat coming down from his temples, and he's going to write the most obvious B version of that trailer. The part of your mind that does the interesting thing, does the, I don't know, maybe chocolate and peanut butter together would be cool, you know? That part of your mind, he's like, that has to be unleashed because you're thinking about something else. So if you don't give him another movie, he's not going to perform. Can I tell you in the past 20 years how many times I've seen that proven true in film, in UI design, in all these things? It is possibly things that your listeners have experienced. If you ever have those kind of ideas when you're walking, driving, showering, doing the dishes, where part of your mind is engaged in something else, you have that idea like, oh, and there's actually a great book about the neuroscience behind this, written by Olivia Fox and Judah Pollack, called The Net and the Butterfly, about catching those ideas. And it talks about how you have two networks in your brain. And this is a reductive way of explaining, but you can read the book if you'd like. And there's an executive mode network that executes action. I have to get my homework done by tomorrow morning. I have a slide deck for Friday. I have a client meeting tomorrow. I need a prep. And there's like the default mode network, which is like a child. I don't know. What does my cell phone taste like? You know what I mean? Like, those crazy ideas. But you, from what does my cell phone taste like, you come up with the weird idea, right? And that sort of thing where I saw that in film. And then now when I lead, technical teams, I make a point of doing that. It's never we must solve this one button right now. It is, what a crazy idea. Okay, let's look at this other thing for a little while and we'll come back to the button, And it's weird the way when you distract your mind, you find the back of your mind says, okay, thank you for giving me a little moment to do my magic. And that is channeling a certain kind of energy, And to wrap that up, like, suppose you're an accountant. Suppose you're not a coach. Suppose you're an attorney or something, and you have a very specific task to do. You do that task, right? You sit there and you have to reconcile a huge spreadsheet. But suppose there's another thing you need to do while you're doing the spreadsheet. If you set the back of your mind to that, energetically, that bubbles up. And then in the middle of the spreadsheet, you have the book that I'm writing on the side, that's what chapter 3 should be. Anyway, so that's one example. We can go through more if you want.
Yeah, no, I understand and appreciate it. And quite interesting when I'm mentoring other coaches to be more effective. I often ask them to be mindful and respectful and careful about not necessarily leading the client different hallways of their mind when they are not necessarily expressing interest in going in the different hallways.
Right.
But what you're doing with your app is that allowing the people to go in the different hallways and bring it back into the main corridor.
What you bring up is really interesting because I'll tell you this, as I got more interested in productivity, I thought to myself, there are so many smart people who have written so many smart books on this. This is not new. For thousands of years, people have tried to figure out how to do this, right? So you read like the top 12 books, like Flow by Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, who named the concept of flow state, right? And you read Deep Work by Cal Newport, you read Near's work and James Clear, you read a bunch of them. And what's interesting is they really tell you the same like 5 or 6 things. There are generally accepted productivity principles. Maybe they have different names for them. Maybe they have a different framework with a different acronym to sell you their book for $24.95, right? But they're very generally accepted things. So what you brought up is there is a well-respected technique, which is monotasking. And there's been enough research where, the people who say that, I multitask, I do these 5 things at once. We've really learned, no, pretty much everyone monotasks. If you're multitasking, it just means you're burning additional energy switching contexts and saying, well, now let me think about the spreadsheet. Well, now let me think about the letter I'm writing. Well, now let me go to email I'm doing, and that sort of thing. So you burn energy as opposed to monotasking. So there's a lot of reward in start this thing, finish it. Don't waste any energy switching tasks, right? Monotasking. So what I just said flies in the face of that, which is, hey guys, you know what? The back of your mind should be doing this other thing. And I think that's one of the interesting things for me is knowing when that's what you want. You know, when you are an engineer and you're like, I know there's a better way to handle this API call, but I can't think of it right now. Let me go for a walk. Let me go work on the transactional thing I was doing over here and let it go. So it's not necessarily contradictory to monotasking, but when you first hear it, you're like, well, shouldn't I just focus on the thing in front of me? That's what every productivity, person tells me. So I offer it as a corollary or a carve out to that idea of monotasking, which I totally support. And, we built into our platform, the Sukha company, like we support monotasking, but we also support creativity.
Well, I don't think it feels to me like an apple and orange, right? As an engineer, I think what you're tapping into the standby energy, standby tasks, capability of the main computer. And I'm also thinking about removing the excessive need to control how things needs to be done by distracting the need to control. And in neurologic coaching, as an engineer, I teach it this way, right? The one part of you gives an order, go execute, lift a finger. And another part goes, oh, no, don't do that.
Right.
And you're like, hey, I can't do it.
We are our own technology.
So you're actually distracting the defenses that gets in the way of system's own authentic functionality to do the its own multi-generational and resourceful creative processing.
Should we touch upon the neurological rewards you get, like dopamine and things like, do you want to talk about some of that stuff?
Sure, we could. Yeah, anything that you feel like we need to add to this conversation to support the audience.
Let's do that. Okay.
Yeah.
So there was a good episode of the Huberman Lab where he talked about how this generation, where we are now in time, is able to get dopamine, the sort of feel good, neurotransmitter. And we can do it with the least amount of effort ever. Maybe, in the past, if you wrote a beautiful poem or a book or you painted something wonderful, you put effort in and then people saw it, when the book was published. But now his point was you can sit on the sofa all day long and scroll and just get dopamine hits as you just have content come to you with no effort, right? So it suddenly becomes very hard to motivate yourself to do things that require effort to get that dopamine when it's available to you in this way. Now, I'll be very blunt and I'll be very transparent. I have a very negative view of social media for the reason that the entire business model is stealing your life, right? The companies, there's a great quote in that documentary about when, you're not paying for the product, you are the product. And some of the smartest designers, behavioral psychologists, engineers in the world work for Meta or Snap or, Twitter X, TikTok, for the very reason it's the biggest paycheck to monetize their knowledge about how to manipulate people into giving up their life. And what do you get in return? You get a stupid dance video or a cat video or something, right? Whereas the company says, thank you for an hour of your life. I just sold to an advertiser and I'm going to keep all of the money. I view that as one of the great evils of our generation, right? And I'm not alone in this. So you can complain all day long about, oh, I am or my clients are underperforming because, social media is drawing this time away. But you can't stop someone from wanting dopamine. It is a natural biological, phenomenon. We like that feeling. So the question that we really asked was, well, how can you generate that feeling of dopamine, that feeling of happiness that makes you want to do something again? And, in looking at this, there are two, by the way, Near AL has some great work on this about internal and external triggers. there's some great research on, okay, I derive that pleasure from knowing someone else sees my work and recognizes it as being important or good or amusing, valuable in some way. Or I feel it intrinsically. Like this work, it doesn't even need to be seen by someone else for me to be very proud and feel like I've done something with my day or my life.
Mm.
And to get someone there, like this is in the design of the platform I built, is we just thought, how do we continually give you rewards, feedback, so you can say, either I want to keep improving myself, show me how I'm doing minute over minute, day over day, week over week, so I can choose to improve because I just care for myself, or because it's a social platform to say, among all of us in here, I want you to see how well I did. We have a social ability to say, I shared one task a day. Like, I'll tell you something I'm very proud of. There is a high school vice principal in Missouri. I've seen him on our platform for about 2 years, usually nights and weekends. In our platform, there's a group chat, all productivity sort of minded people sharing, thoughts and encouragement. And you can post one time a day something you worked on. That's it, right? So he often posted things about engineering. Okay. He posted about a month ago, his one thing was finished my dissertation, turned in my dissertation. Mm. And a bunch of people in the chat were like, oh, hey, Roy, we've seen you in there. This, congratulations. And he said, okay, great, but I have to go defend it. So, 2 weeks from Monday or whatever the date was, right? He said, I have to go do that. And I will tell you what's interesting is when that date came around without him saying anything, a number of people on the platform that weekend said, Monday, you got it, Roy. Like, we're pulling for you. Can't wait to hear. And Monday, he said nothing. He was offline. Didn't hear anything. And Tuesday morning, his first post was, you can now call me Dr. King. And the number of people who went wild in the chat going, we have watched you do this for 2 years while you are a vice principal at this high school. You've been working on your PhD in engineering. That is like a side hustle. And that community feeling, how you can imagine how Roy, Dr. King, felt and how that encouraged him on his path of, this feels really good to perform this way, not just for himself, but also to be part of a community of people who hold each other up. So that sort of approach to say, how can I combat the distraction of like, it's really easy to just say, oh, I'm just going to pick up my phone for a minute and I'm going to, scroll in TikTok. The best way to do it is fight them on their grounds. And that's what we encourage.
Yeah. So there is the self-progression, self-monitoring, in a way, capability, along with, hey, mommy, look what I'm just doing.
Whatever works. It's internal, external triggers, but whatever works for you to perform, right? To realize your potential. You talk about this all the time. How do I get you to your greatest potential?
Absolutely.
That's why I'm here.
Absolutely. So it's been pleasure and joy chatting with you about this, Steven. Anything else you felt like we haven't touched upon and you wanted to share before we close?
I would simply say this. I know that we covered a lot of ground. We made a lot of references to things. My email address is very public. If anyone has a question about, I'd love more about NEAR, or who is the James Clear guy you talked about, or tell me more about flow states, you can put my email address in the show notes. I'm happy if someone reached out and said, hey, could you refer me to Mihai's work? I work very hard to return all my emails within 24 hours if I'm not sick or traveling. You may not get a 19-paragraph email, the story of my life, but I will send you a blog post or send something that's like, this might help you on your way. So I offer that as a closing thought.
Absolutely. And how would we can put them in with the show notes, but how would people find you and your offerings if they're interested?
My email address is Steven with a V at thesukha.co, like the Sukha company, THESUKHA.co. And if anyone wants to try the platform that we built, it is free for 7 days, no credit card. You can sign up in 10 seconds. It's just name, email address, and you can use it. If after 7 days you'd love it, great, sign up and pay. If you don't, it was free. And it's again, THESUKHA.co. And it's just made to help people get into a flow state, to get into that place where you can do your best work.
Towards their highest potentiality
Right?
and
Let us all
harmonic
get there.
flows with the universe. Just like that.
A little harder than that, but yes, it does work.
Well,
Thank you so much
absolutely.
for having me. And whoever is still listening, very grateful you're still here.
Absolutely. And if you missed it in the beginning, our beautiful audience, this is Coaching with Mastery and Elegance with Tijen Genco. My guest was Steven Puri. We had joy of speaking with you about the flows, harmonic energies, performances, and a couple other things. So if you liked us, remember to leave us a comment and a feedback and share and follow our podcast. And until next time, thank you for being with us. Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you.